In the twilight streets of Renaissance Florence, a man walked with quiet intensity. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, diplomat, philosopher, observer of human nature. But history would turn his name into something much more than that. It would become a term, Machiavellianism, a word that evokes cunning, manipulation, and ruthless strategy. But who was Machiavelli really? And how did his ideas come to define a mindset often viewed with both fear and fascination? Born in 1469, Machiavelli lived in turbulent times. Florence, once a powerful city-state, was caught in a web of political upheaval, shifting alliances and foreign invasions. Machiavelli served as a senior official in the Florentine Republic, navigating the dangerous corridors of diplomacy and statecraft. He saw firsthand how power was wielded, not in theory, but in practice. He watched leaders rise and fall, betray and be betrayed. After a political shift, he was accused of conspiracy, imprisoned, and tortured. Though eventually released, he was exiled from politics and turned to writing. It was during this exile that Machiavelli wrote his most infamous work, The Prince. Unlike the idealistic treatises of the time, The Prince was brutally honest. It was not a guide to virtue, it was a manual for power. Machiavelli argued that a ruler's primary responsibility was not to be good, but to be effective. He declared, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This was not a celebration of evil, but an unflinching look at reality. In a world of ambition and betrayal, kindness alone could be fatal. A ruler must learn to manipulate, to deceive when necessary, to use cruelty wisely, and always to maintain power. Thus, Machiavellianism was born, not as a philosophy endorsed by Machiavelli himself, but as a label for a worldview that sees people as self-interested, politics as a game, and success as the ultimate measure. Over time, Machiavellianism became more than political theory. Psychologists began to use the term to describe a personality trait, a manipulative, calculating disposition focused on self-interest and control. In modern psychology, it forms part of what's known as the dark triad, alongside narcissism and psychopathy. But to reduce Machiavelli to a villain is to miss the complexity of his thought. He also wrote discourses on Livy, where he praised republican values, civic virtue, and public participation. He wasn't merely a schemer, he was a realist. He challenged the illusions of morality in politics, insisting that outcomes often mattered more than intentions. And in doing so, he forced generations to confront uncomfortable truths about power and leadership. Machiavellianism, then, is not just about being cold or ruthless. It is about strategy. It is about understanding that people are not always noble, that appearances matter, and that influence often lies in knowing when to speak and when to act in silence. In business, in politics, in everyday life, the Machiavellian mindset may lurk behind many decisions. Some use it to gain power, others to protect themselves. It can be dangerous, yes, but also effective. In the end, Machiavelli didn't create this mindset. He merely revealed it. And in doing so, he left behind more than a book. He left a mirror, one that still challenges us to ask, what would you do to hold on to power? How far would you go to achieve your goals? And can anyone truly lead without getting their hands a little dirty? That is Machiavellianism explained. Thank you for listening to Explained under 5 minutes. If this episode helped you find a little more clarity, consider subscribing and sharing with someone who could use it too. Until next time, stay strong, stay present, and stay curious.